Welcome to Start, Sits, and Salutations. I'm Joey Wright, and today we're getting out of nature and into the kitchen when I make my grandmother's famous blue Christmas candy. But first, we need to get some supplies. Come along. Oh, hi, Troy King. Starts. Well, we're back home from the grocery store. Now let's take a look at the ingredients we're going to need to make our candy. We're going to need, of course, sugar, blue food coloring, high fructose corn syrup, flavoring syrup, and the most important ingredient of all, ammonia. All essential items to give it the flavor I grew up craving. One player that I think is essential this week for your lineups would be Javonte Williams. Even if Melvin Gordon were to return, the Detroit Lions are giving up the third most fantasy points to fantasy running backs. Our first step is to line our baking sheet with some aluminum foil to prevent the candy from sticking. One time my grandmother forgot to put the aluminum foil down and all the candy came out with little flakes of metal in it. It still tasted good, but to this day, I can no longer see the color red or stand within 10 feet of a microwave. One player I don't expect the Washington football team to get within 10 feet of this week would be Michael Gallup, who the last 3 weeks, he's averaged 9 targets per game.
Hey, Joe, what color is your sweater?
Yellow. My grandmother would always start the cook-off by putting in her secret ingredient first, which was always a sprinkle of love. I'll do the same, but my secret ingredient is a sprinkle of sass. I'll ball that up with a half a cup of water, 3/4 cup corn syrup, 2 cups of granulated sugar, and an 1/8 cup of ammonia. One player this week that might seem like a secret is Gerald Everett. With the Seahawks passing woes of late, I'm expecting them to throw the ball a lot more, and the Houston Texans give up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. Sits. Now you want to put your pot on a medium-high burner and stir it until the sugar dissolves and it comes to a boil. You'll then want to paint the sides of the saucepan with a wet pastry brush to prevent the sugars from crystalling. My mother actually had a cat named Crystal. One year, the mailman backed over her back legs in the driveway. She didn't die, but she was pretty much useless until the lawn guy finished her off a few months later. One player I expect to get mowed over this week is James Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who only allows 75 yards rushing per game this season. We will continue to cook until it reaches 292 degrees. Then move it off the burner, add our flavoring and food coloring, and then pour into our baking pan for it to set. While we wait for this to cool, one player I expect to cool off this week would be Odell Beckham Jr. against the Arizona Cardinals. Since arriving in Los Angeles, Beckham has had less than 30 receiving yards in 2 out of 3 games, and his fantasy days have been saved by touchdowns. I've got some blue food coloring on me. Do you have anything I can put on?
Yeah, try this.
Oh, thank you. Once the candy is completely cooled off and gotten hard, you'll want to break it up into smaller pieces and then it'll be ready to eat. I like to store mine in these cute little holiday baggies. My grandmother was always wonderful about making sure there was enough to supply the whole neighborhood, and that's a tradition that I don't expect to let pass. One player that I don't expect to pass very much this weekend would be Matt Ryan. He plays the Carolina Panthers this weekend. They give up the 4th least amount of points to fantasy quarterbacks.
We've been receiving some reports of some unusual activity at this residence, so we're just going to do a quick check-in.
Oh, hi!
Mother of God.
Start, Sits, and Salutations is filmed on location with the men and women who look nothing like law enforcement due to budget restrictions. All suspects are innocent until proven clueless and endearing in a court of law.